I don't like. Fun and spooky, making me anxious. I don't understand. I'm currently reading 18 different book series, and in today's video we are going to try to tackle as many book series as we can. And obviously 18 is a lot, so we're not going to check off every single book series this week, but we're going to do as much as we can. We're going to start by reading Winter, which is part of the Lunar Chronicles. And this is actually the last full book I have in this series, although she did publish a novella that comes after this book that I definitely want to read, so I'm not going to technically check off this series after I finish this one because I still technically have a novella to read after. But this is the last full book of the entire series, and obviously I can't tell you what this book is about, especially because I'm so deep into this series. But the first book is Cinder, and all of the books in the series follow a loose fairy tale retelling. And so Cinder of course follows a loose Cinderella retelling, but of course there's a twist, and the twist is that she is technically a cyborg, so she's partly made out of metal, and she's also a mechanic, and her life is going fine, going kind of somewhat normal. I mean, as normal as life can get when there's a big deadly virus going around her city, but her life is normal until the prince comes asking her to fix something for him, and then the story kind of spirals from there. This is actually one of my favorite YA series. It is a YA fantasy romance series, and I actually grew up reading these books, but I never actually finished Winter, and I've been doing my reread of this entire series for pretty much this entire year. I think I might have actually started doing these rereads last year, so it's been a while, and I'm finally on the book where I don't have to reread. Like, this is a brand new read for me, and I'm so excited. Of course, I'm assuming based off the cover that this is going to be a Snow White retelling, and I love a good fairy tale retelling. I just made it to chapter 36, which is page 316 in this book, and it's crazy because this doesn't even look like I'm that far into it, but I've already read over 300 pages of this book. But anyways, that's not what I came on here to say. I came on here to talk about my thoughts, my feelings, everything that's going down. Obviously, I'm not going to give any spoilers on this book, but in the very beginning, I was like not loving it. I was kind of confused on what was going on. Like, mentally, I knew what was going on in the book, but I was like, why am I not loving this book? Like, I've loved every single other book in the series, but this one for some reason just took me a second to get into it. Maybe it was because I took kind of a big break between the book before this one and this book, and I kind of had to think like, okay, what happened in the last book? Like, where did things leave off in the last book? I kind of really had to sit and think about it because I just couldn't remember. But now that I'm 300 pages in, I am loving it so much. I'm so intrigued on what's gonna happen, although I do think I know one part that's going to happen because I did kind of get a mini spoiler online, simply because I saw that there was a novella online, and I saw the title of the novella and it kind of gave a little bit away. Not a ton by any means, and it was kind of something that I was like, okay, like I kind of already assumed that that would happen, but everything else is all up in the air. I have no idea how she's going to manage to wrap this entire series up in this book. I mean, it is a pretty long book. It looks so short. Like I said, I'm only 300 pages in, and it looks like I'm like barely scratching the book, but the book is over 800 pages long, and I honestly was so confused for the whole like first 100 pages because I was like, why is this book so heavy? Like, I don't understand. And it's because it's 800 pages, but it's so like short looking. Anyways, I did actually listen to a little bit of the audiobook while I was driving to and from work this week, and that was fun. I do actually really like the audiobook. Also, they changed the covers of this entire series. There's new covers now, so I have the old covers, and I think I actually like the old covers better. I don't know, there's just something about them. I do think the old covers lean a little bit more towards like the fairy tale retelling aspect of the whole books, and the fairy tale retelling aspect in these books is so tiny. Like, I don't even know how this relates to Snow White at all so far. I lied. Yes, I do. I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee, even though I've already had a cup this morning. But for some reason, when I have a headache, instead of taking pain meds, I will just drink a cup of coffee or maybe like a soda. Anything with caffeine in it. So that's what I'm gonna go do. Read a little bit. I want to go on a walk later. Enjoy the fall weather while I can. It has been a couple of days. I've made it to chapter 83, which is almost to page 700. I actually mostly listened to this book today, and I just want to say the audiobook narrator is so good. She does an amazing job with all of the voices, but specifically Queen Lavanna's voice is absolutely perfect. On another note, there's something that happens in this book that happens in a lot of other fantasy books that I don't like. It's just like kind of, I guess, a type of fantasy book I don't normally gravitate to, and I just don't love. And I wish I could say more to describe like my feelings towards it, but it would be a major spoiler, so I'm not going to say anything. I just didn't love that part of it, but that would mostly just be me being picky. Like 90% of this book I'm really loving, really enjoying. I'm also obsessed with the Snow White fairy tale retelling part of this book. I'm a sucker for a good fairy tale retelling, and I feel like this one does such a good job. Like there's genuinely been multiple times throughout this book that while I'm reading, I will literally say to myself, the author does such a good job. I'll literally be reading and I'll be like, oh, that is so good. Like Marrisa Meyer just puts something in her books that is so good. She is truly so talented, and I can't wait to read more of her work. So I am going to come back when I finish this book because I'm so close. I finished Winter, I think 2 days ago, so I can confidently say that this is a 4-star read for me. I feel like I liked the rest of the series just a little bit more. Like I said, there were a couple of elements in this book that I didn't really enjoy, and there was a couple things that I wish we had more of, but I will say I think we are going to get some of that in Stars Above, which I actually did learn this book completes the entire series, and Stars Above is actually just a bind up of a bunch of different novellas that take place after Winter, which is why you have to read it after Winter. So technically we have not finished this series, and we're gonna read this book probably in a different reading vlog. We're not gonna read it today because I actually started my next book, which is Sanctum. This is the second book in the Asylum series. I don't think that this series is very popular. I don't really hear people talk about it, but it is very YA. I literally started this series. Hey, Albie. Sorry, my cat just randomly decided she wanted to start digging into one of my plants. But anyway, I think I was just saying I don't hear a lot of people talk about this book. I think part of that is because this is very YA, but I started reading this book, I want to say in middle school. It could have been early high school. I'm not really entirely sure. But I started the series around that age range, and I just remember reading Asylum pretty much in one sitting because I loved it so much. And then I did actually reread it, I think 2 or 3 months ago, and I still really enjoyed it. Although, like I said, it is very YA, so there's elements of the book that I'm like, ooh, that's a little cringy, or like, I don't really like that, but it makes sense in a YA book. So I feel like I kind of have to rate this series with the lens of being like a YA reader. Like I have to put myself in my like, what, 15-year-old shoes or whatever the age is for YA. I can't remember. Is that right? That feels right. But hey, let me actually tell you what this book is about. Basically, in the first book, you follow Dan, and he is going to this summer camp that is held at a college, and it kind of gives high school students a taste of like the college life, and they get to experience a bunch of different like college classes, more of like seminars that the professors are teaching. But the kicker is the school that this takes place at actually has an old asylum on campus because they kind of like bought out the old asylum. And so of course all of these high school students are staying in the old asylum, and one day Dan and his friends kind of stumble upon this area in the old asylum that no one is supposed to be in, and so they kind of discover some secrets about this asylum, and they're kind of hunting down these clues while crazy creepy things are happening around them. And I feel like that's all I can say. It's really interesting. I also like the way that the book is set up. There's pictures throughout the book, so like this is the asylum. I think that's kind of fun, especially for a YA book, and because it's like a creepy book, like you can tell like there's pictures like this throughout the entire book, and I just think that's fun. So I definitely recommend this series for that YA age range, and I'm excited to see where this book brings us because I do kind of feel like the first book tied off the story pretty nicely, so I'm intrigued to see what's gonna happen in this. I will say though, I did make it to chapter 10, which is page 82, and this book is pretty short, so I feel like I've gotten a good chunk through already, and we have had a couple creepy things happen. I've been reading this book mostly throughout the day, or just like picking it up kind of one-off, so I'm excited to sit down and really see what goes on, especially because I feel like you can probably tell it's nighttime right now, so I'm excited to see if this gives me a little spooked. Last time I read the series, I finished the first book like way late at night, like later than I normally tend to stay up, and I worry a little bit that that's going to happen because I'm reading this book at night and I do have to work tomorrow, so that can't happen, okay? Anyways, I'm gonna sit down, stop yapping, read this book. I can't tell if this is a weird angle or not, but we're just gonna go with it because it's like down on me and I feel like I don't normally film like that. But anyway, I finished this book yesterday, and unfortunately I think I'm gonna give it a 3 star. Now that doesn't mean that it was a bad book at all, obviously, because a 3 star is not bad, but my problem was that the first book in the series was so fun and spooky, and I really liked that. I liked that it made me a little bit scared without making me too scared, because it was YA and I do get scared easily, but this book didn't do that at all. There weren't even small parts of this book where I was slightly creeped out. I wasn't creeped out at all. didn't spook me at all. So it was very much the polar opposite of the first book, and honestly, this book almost felt like the first book was really popular, so the author said, okay, let me turn this into a trilogy, because I feel like the story fully wrapped itself up in the first book, and this book just felt not unnecessary, but like just felt like it was like extra. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna give this one a 3-star. Maybe you would like it if you were in the YA range, but after this one, I'm not sure if I'm going to finish this series or not. There's only one left, so I'm not sure. But even like the pictures in this one weren't even spooky at all. Like they were kind of just a little bit odd, and I found the pictures in the first book to be pretty spooky, so I'm kind of disappointed, especially because I was really in the mood for a scary book. So that might be my sign to branch out a little into like the horror space. Maybe I do like thrillers, and that's kind of like what these books are, but this one wasn't scary at all, nor was it thrilling. It was just kind of middle of the road for me. But I will say there are a couple of aspects of this book that I was like, oh my gosh, that is bringing me back, because I think it was probably written a while ago. But anyways, in the book they used the flashlight app on their phones, and this was like back in the day when iPhones were pretty new and they didn't have like actual flashlights on the back, so you could like use your screen and you had the app, and the entire front of the screen was like bright white on the app, and like that's how you use the flashlight. And they did that in this book, and I was like, that is hilarious. Like I fully forgot that that's how flashlights used to be like on the iPhone. Also, another thing I liked about this book was that the title has a meaning, and you find out the meaning like kind of at the end of the book, so I really liked that. I love when the title of a book has a meaning and you don't find out until like at the end of the book. So there was definitely good things that I liked about this book. I just didn't love it, so it was a little bit disappointing, especially because I would definitely say Asylum was like a 5-star read for me when I read it like years and years ago, and even when I reread it a couple months ago, I was like, yeah, I love this book. But this one, not my fave. And then I actually did start my next book, which the next book I'm going to read is the Scorch Trials. This is the second book in the Maze Runner series, and I actually started reading this book a while ago, but I never finished it. And when I say a while ago, I mean when I was like, what, in middle schools when these movies came out, I think, and that's when I started reading the books, because of course I wanted to read the books before I watched the movie, but I definitely failed when it came to this one because I watched the movie before reading this book. So I have seen the movie, but I will say I haven't seen it in years and years and years, so I don't remember what happens in the movie. And even now when I'm reading it, I'm only on chapter 17, page 92, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this. So I do feel like it's mostly like I'm reading it for the first time, even though I'm familiar with the story. But if you don't know anything about the Maze Runner series, I believe it's a dystopian, and in this world there's a big group of guys that kind of get thrown into this maze, and they have to figure out how to get out of the maze. And then one day all of a sudden a girl shows up, and that's the only girl, and things just kind of start going crazy. Things start getting weird, you know? And so they have to try to figure out how to get out of this maze while they're kind of being attacked by like random creatures, and different things are happening. It's kind of hard to describe without giving anything away, but obviously this book takes place after the maze, and I don't think that they ended up keeping going making the movies. I think they kind of stopped after the Scorch Trials. There could be another movie after that one, and I just don't remember, which is interesting to me because I think that there's like 5 books in this series or something like that, or maybe there's 4. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm kind of on the fence about how I feel about this one so far. I'm hoping once I sit down and read this for a little bit, I'll like it a little bit more. And it's so beautiful outside right now, so I want to go sit outside and read. And also yesterday when I started this book, I was listening to the audiobook, and then I switched to physically reading it, and I did enjoy the audiobook. So I don't know, we'll see. I want to physically read it and see how I like it. I just made it to chapter 32, which is about halfway through this book, and I don't think I'm really liking this book, which sucks. I thought that maybe like as the book went on, I would like it more and more. But if anything, reading this book kind of feels like a chore, which makes me nervous because I obviously never want reading to feel like a chore. But at the same time, I don't want to DNF it, so it's kind of an odd feeling that I don't know what to do, you know? Because I'm like, I don't like it. As of right now, I can't imagine it being higher than a 3-star read for me. So it's like, why would I keep going? Like if I'm not really having that much fun, not super enjoying it, but at the same time I'm like, I don't want to stop. Like I want to read it. I think I mostly just want to read this so that I can read the rest of the series, but there's something about this book and like what's going on in this book that is almost like making me anxious. I feel like this book is like the epitome of like, can't believe what you see and you never know what is around the corner, and that stresses me out. So because of that, I feel like I don't really love this, but I want to give it a shot. I want to keep reading it. I do also have the audiobook on Libby, so I feel like if I end up not loving it, maybe at like the 75% mark, I can just just finish it by listening to the audiobook because I've actually been obsessed with coloring recently, but specifically like this kind of coloring book where it's big. I can't remember the artist that originally started this, but now they're pretty popular like everywhere. But I just find it so much fun to color something like this while listening to an audiobook. So maybe I'll do that later. But for now, I want to sit down and physically read this book. I of course have my little fall ambience on. I also had book club earlier today, so that was a lot of fun. I'm like just in the mood to have all like the book type of things. You know what I mean? Like everything book related, I want to do it right now. So I am gonna sit down and read. I've got my new crock pot going. I'm making some taco soup for the week. So I'm just having a grand old day. I just finished the Scorch trials literally like less than 2 minutes ago, so these are my very fresh thoughts right after finishing the book. I want to give this, I think, maybe a 3.5 star, and I feel like in the beginning of the book I really didn't like it, but the end of the book really picked up for me and I ended up actually really liking the end of the book. It just kind of sucked that I wasn't really loving the first 3/4 of the book, and then the last fourth of the book I did really enjoy. So I'm hoping the next book will not be like that. I'm hoping I'll just enjoy the whole thing, but there's a couple things in this series that kind of bother me, and I think the main thing is that in the first book they kind of like made up this slang, and since these books are YA, it kind of feels like the author just like made up this slang so that they wouldn't curse in the books, and I don't love that. Like that's one thing about YA that I don't love when they do. And hey, I'm older than the YA range at this point, so take that as you will, but I still did really enjoy this. There's a couple things that I feel like were not explained in this book, and so hopefully they'll be explained in the rest of the series, and if not, it's definitely going to lose some points. I kind of feel like he wrote this book that way to keep you reading the rest of the series, because obviously like things get explained as you keep reading. But like I said, I did like the ending of this book, mostly because I didn't predict anything about the end. I actually didn't really have any predictions to begin with. I had no idea how this book was going to end, so I did like that aspect of the book, and I'm definitely going to keep reading this series. Which I don't know if I mentioned this, but in the beginning of this book I genuinely was like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading this series. Like I was unsure, but now that I've gotten to the end, I'm like, yeah, I definitely will keep reading this series, especially because I already own the next 2 books. Like I might as well just read them, mostly because I enjoyed the end of this one. But also yesterday when I was reading this book, granted it was nighttime, but I was like, why is this writing style so difficult for me to read? And then I picked up the book this morning and I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like what's going on in my brain? I don't know. So that was kind of weird. Could have just been because I was tired, had a long work day, you know, things like that. But still, I thought that that was a little weird because I don't think I've had that feeling in a really long time of like a book is like making me feel like I don't know how to read. Anyway, that was weird. I also read 2 other books in this video. I think I ended up giving Winter a 4 star, which is a little bit disappointing because it is technically like the last full book of a series. There's one more book after this one, but it's a bunch of like short story novella type of situation. And I think I definitely just had higher expectations for this book. Plus, oh wait, I just realized all the books I read in this video are YA. So I was going to say, because this is YA and this was my first time reading this book and the rest of the series I read when I was like in that YA age range, like middle school, early high school. I definitely recommend this entire series for that YA age range. I do feel like it's a series that unfortunately you age out of, but it is so nostalgic for me that I feel like I could read it again in like 10 years and be like, oh, this reminds me of my childhood. It's also just a good classic fairy tale retelling. I loved the fairy tale retelling element in this book. It felt like genius. I was like, how did Marrisa Meyer manage to think of that and like weave it into the story so perfectly? Because like I said before, they're all different fairy tale retellings. So like this one's Snow White, but she manages to weave them all into the story so perfectly. It's like shocking. I'm like, she's a genius for the way that she does these books. And then I also read Sanctum, which is the second book in the Asylum series. And I think I'm just gonna give this one a 3 star. And I unfortunately don't think I'm going to read the rest of the series, mostly because the next book they don't have at my library and I don't really want to go out and buy the book simply because I didn't love this one, which is crazy to me because I loved loved the first book. Definitely a 5-star read for me. This one was just missing that like spooky element to it, so I kind of didn't love that, especially because I feel like looking at the cover, like it gives off those spooky vibes. And like I said, I'm spooked very easily, so the first book got me like 100%. I was scared while reading that one, but this one not so much, which is unfortunate. So that is it for this video. Unfortunately, we didn't finish any series, but let me know if you want to see me do this again, and hopefully we can tick off some series on my list. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.